I slept with him twice. That was the sentence that shattered 5 years of marriage in a single heartbeat. He wasn't meant to hear it. Hidden just beyond a half-open door during their anniversary party, champagne still flowing and guests still celebrating. By the end of that night, love had turned into strategy, and betrayal was about to cost far more than anyone in that room expected. Welcome to True Love Stories. Please subscribe and leave a like for us. It means the world to us. Also share this video. Now let's go into the story. The house glowed like something out of a magazine spread. Crystal chandeliers shimmered above polished marble floors, reflecting soft gold light across walls lined with framed photographs. 5 years of curated happiness captured in still frames. Adrian and Vanessa on their wedding day. Their honeymoon on the Amalfi Coast. Smiling selfies from charity galas, beach vacations, Sunday brunches. To anyone walking through the front doors that evening, they were the image of success, devotion, and modern power couple perfection. Guests filled the Cole mansion with laughter and clinking glasses. Influential business partners, socialites, investors, and close friends mingled beneath cascading floral arrangements designed specifically for the occasion. A live jazz band played near the terrace, the saxophone's melody warm and romantic. Servers floated through the crowd offering champagne and delicate hors d'oeuvres plated like edible art. It was extravagant without appearing excessive. Exactly the kind of event Adrian Cole was known for hosting. Adrian stood near the center of it all, greeting guests with confident warmth. His tailored black tuxedo fit him perfectly, sharp and understated, with subtle gold embroidery lining the cuffs. Tonight mattered to him. 5 years of marriage wasn't just a milestone, it was proof. Proof that he and Vanessa had built something lasting. Something strong. And Vanessa Cole was radiant. She moved gracefully through the room in a deep emerald gown that hugged her figure elegantly. Crystals shimmered along the bodice, catching the chandelier light each time she laughed. Diamonds rested against her collarbone. People were drawn to her effortlessly. She had always had that ability. Charming without trying, magnetic without demanding attention. When she reached Adrian and slid her hand into his, cameras flashed. 5 years, one guest said cheerfully. You two make it look easy. Adrian smiled at that. Easy. If only they knew the work behind the scenes, the long nights building his company from the ground up, the pressure, the sacrifices. But through it all, he had believed they were a team. Vanessa had stood beside him at every major event, supported him publicly, encouraged him privately. At least, that was what he thought. Across the room stood Malcolm Rhodes. Malcolm, billionaire investor and longtime friend. Charismatic, influential, impeccably dressed in a sapphire blue dinner jacket with an amber bow tie that made him impossible to ignore. He laughed easily, holding court among executives and entrepreneurs. Malcolm had been more than a business ally. He had been welcomed into Adrian and Vanessa's home countless times. Adrian trusted him. The band finished a song, and applause rippled through the guests. Adrian checked his watch. It was almost time for his anniversary toast. He scanned the crowd for Vanessa, but couldn't see her near the bar or the dance floor. Have you seen Vanessa? Adrian asked one of her friends. She stepped into one of the guest rooms with the girls, the woman replied casually. Probably fixing her lipstick. Adrian nodded and made his way down the quieter hallway toward the private rooms. The music softened as distance swallowed the sound. The laughter from the party blurred into a dull hum. The hallway lighting was dimmer, more intimate. He adjusted his cufflinks as he walked, rehearsing the opening line of his speech in his head. Then he heard it. Laughter. Not the polished laugh Vanessa used for guests. This one was looser. Intimate. He slowed his steps. The guest room door was slightly ajar. He wasn't trying to eavesdrop. At first, he meant only to knock gently and let Vanessa know it was time. But then he heard his own name, followed by a tone he didn't recognize. One of her friends giggled. Does Adrian suspect anything? A pause. Then Vanessa's voice. Soft. Casual. Unbothered. I slept with him twice. It didn't mean anything. The words didn't register immediately. They hovered in the air, detached from reality. Inside the room, someone gasped. Twice. Oh my God, Vanessa. She exhaled lightly, almost amused. It was just physical. And it was months ago. He was persistent. You know how Malcolm is. Another voice whispered. But Malcolm is Adrian's friend. A small scoff. Please. Men like them don't even think about loyalty the same way. Besides, it's not like I'm in love with Malcolm. A sharp ringing filled Adrian's ears. Malcolm. The name slammed into him harder than the confession itself. His heart pounded violently, each beat heavier than the last. Inside the room, Vanessa continued, softer now. It was a mistake. It's over. And Adrian will never find out. Laughter again. Nervous. Thrilled. Secretive. 5 years collapsed in seconds. Adrian saw flashes. Vanessa's late nights out, unexplained trips, Malcolm's hand lingering too long at her waist during a gala. The private jokes they shared. He had dismissed it all as harmless. He had trusted them both. The betrayal wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet and surgical. He didn't burst into the room. Didn't shout Vanessa's name. Didn't confront Malcolm in the middle of his own house. Instead, something inside Adrian went still. The kind of stillness that comes after impact. He stepped back silently, careful not to let his shoes scrape against the marble. His breathing slowed, not because he was calm, but because he forced it to. By the time he re-entered the ballroom, no one would have guessed his world had just shattered. Across the room, Malcolm Rhodes stood confidently with a glass of champagne, smiling as he spoke to two investors. When his eyes met Adrian's, Malcolm lifted his glass slightly in salute. Adrian forced a smile in return. Moments later, Vanessa emerged from the hallway, her emerald gown flawless, lips freshly glossed. She slipped her arm through Adrian's naturally. Ready for your big speech? Vanessa asked warmly. Adrian looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time that night. Yes, he said evenly. He took the microphone as the music faded and the room quieted. All eyes turned to him. His hand was steady now, his voice smooth and confident. 5 years ago, Adrian began, I married the woman I believed was my greatest blessing. The crowd smiled. Vanessa squeezed his hand affectionately. Malcolm watched from across the room. And while the guests saw romance, celebration, and devotion, only Adrian Cole knew that something had just died. The perfect anniversary continued. But behind his calm expression, his heart lay in pieces. The applause after Adrian's anniversary speech was thunderous. Crystal glasses lifted into the air. Guests smiled, some even wiping at sentimental tears. Adrian stood beneath cascading gold light, one hand holding the microphone, the other resting lightly at Vanessa's waist. To everyone watching, Adrian and Vanessa Cole were the definition of love. Inside, something had gone cold. Vanessa leaned into him, her emerald gown shimmering with every movement. The dress was dramatic, layers of silk sculpted like overlapping leaves, hand-stitched crystals catching the chandelier light. Her ruby-red lipstick was bold against her glowing skin. She looked vibrant, untouched by guilt. You were incredible, Vanessa whispered, brushing a speck of lint from Adrian's tuxedo jacket. They loved it. Adrian smiled. Measured. Perfect. Across the ballroom, Malcolm Rhodes stood out effortlessly in his sapphire blue dinner jacket, amber bow tie crisp and playful. He laughed easily with a circle of executives, one hand resting casually in his pocket. Confident. Untouchable. For a split second, Malcolm's eyes met Adrian's. Malcolm raised his glass slightly in a silent toast. Adrian raised his own in return. If Malcolm noticed the subtle shift in Adrian's gaze, he didn't show it. The party resumed its rhythm, music swelling, couples dancing, servers weaving between guests. Vanessa moved toward the dance floor with her friends, spinning beneath the golden lights. Around her, the women were dressed in bold, vibrant gowns, sunflower yellow satin with exaggerated sleeves, fuchsia with feathered shoulders, metallic silver that reflected every flicker of light. They looked like a bouquet of exotic flowers. Adrian watched from a distance. He noticed everything now. The way Vanessa's laughter rang louder when Malcolm joined the group. The brief brush of Malcolm's hand at her lower back. The subtle familiarity in their body language. Had it always been this obvious? Or had love blinded him? Malcolm approached him near the bar, 2 glasses of champagne in hand. "Hell of a speech, Adrian," Malcolm said smoothly, handing him a glass. 5 years is impressive." "It is," Adrian replied evenly. Malcolm studied him for a moment, perhaps sensing something different, but Adrian's expression revealed nothing. "You've built something solid," Malcolm continued, "in business and in life." The slight emphasis on the last words did not go unnoticed. Adrian took a slow sip of champagne. "I believe in protecting what's mine." Malcolm's smile flickered, just briefly, before returning. They clinked glasses. Crystal against crystal. The sound was sharp, fragile. Later in the evening, guests gathered around the 5-tier anniversary cake. Gold accents, hand-painted teal and crimson sugar flowers, sparklers flickering softly at the top. The band played a romantic melody as Vanessa and Adrian stood side by side. Vanessa placed her hand over his as they held the knife together. Her nails were painted metallic gold. He had paid for that manicure 2 days ago. "Smile," the photographer called. Adrian smiled. Flash. Captured forever. Vanessa playfully dabbed frosting on his cheek. The guests laughed. Adrian responded in kind, maintaining the performance. Appearances mattered, especially now, because if Vanessa believed he was unaware, she would grow comfortable. And comfort created carelessness. As the night stretched toward midnight, Adrian felt the transformation solidify inside him. The heartbreak was still there, but beneath it, something sharper was forming. Clarity. He would not confront Vanessa tonight. He would not shout. He would not give Malcolm the satisfaction of chaos. He would plan. Near the end of the evening, Malcolm clasped Adrian's shoulder firmly. "Congratulations again, my friend," he said with easy confidence. "Thank you for coming, Malcolm," Adrian replied calmly. Their eyes held for a second too long. When the final guests departed and the mansion doors closed, silence fell heavily over the house. Vanessa kicked off her heels with a relieved sigh. "That was perfect," she said, stretching her arms. Everything went exactly right. Adrian loosened his bow tie slowly. "Did it?" Vanessa laughed lightly, misreading his tone. "Of course it did." She disappeared upstairs, the emerald silk trailing behind her like the tail of an illusion. Adrian remained alone in the foyer. Above him, the crystal chandelier glowed softly. The banner across the staircase still read, 5 years strong. The irony was almost poetic. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He scrolled once, then tapped a contact he hadn't used in years, Daniel Reeves, a discreet attorney known for handling high-profile divorces and corporate litigation. The line rang twice. "Daniel Reeves." "It's Adrian Cole," Adrian said evenly. "I need a private consultation. First thing tomorrow." There was a brief pause. "Of course." Adrian ended the call and slipped the phone back into his pocket. Upstairs, Vanessa laughed softly to herself while removing her jewelry, unaware that the version of Adrian who had loved her blindly no longer existed. He stood there in his burgundy velvet vest and gold-stitched tuxedo, staring at the quiet house they had built together. His heart was broken, but his mind was clear. He would not react. He would respond. And when the time came, the mask would come off. The next morning felt insultingly ordinary. Sunlight filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Cole mansion, stretching across cream walls and polished hardwood floors. Vanessa slept peacefully beside Adrian, her breathing slow and even, her hand resting lightly on his chest. 5 years of marriage, and she slept without disturbance. Adrian stared at the ceiling. There was no explosion, no restless pacing, no dramatic confrontation in the dark. Just silence. He carefully lifted her hand from his chest and slid out of bed. In the bathroom mirror, he studied his reflection. His eyes were sharper now. Colder. Not broken, recalibrated. He dressed deliberately. Charcoal gray tailored suit. Crisp white shirt. Deep plum silk tie. Matte black cufflinks. Controlled. Structured. Intentional. Downstairs, Vanessa stood in the kitchen wearing a burnt orange silk robe, sunlight illuminating her curls as she poured coffee. "Good morning," she said with a soft smile. "Last night was beautiful." Adrian poured himself coffee. "Black." "It was memorable," he replied. She didn't catch the difference. He left shortly after, claiming meetings. That part, at least, was true. But the most important meeting of the day wasn't corporate. It was with Daniel Reeves. Daniel's office sat in a quiet high-rise overlooking the river. Discreet, understated, expensive without spectacle. Daniel Reeves was precise in both speech and posture. Mid-40s. Calm. Calculated. "Tell me what you know," Daniel said. Adrian didn't hesitate. "My wife admitted to sleeping with Malcolm Rhodes. I heard it myself." Daniel's expression remained neutral. "Do you have proof?" "Not yet." Daniel leaned back slightly. "You have an infidelity clause in your prenuptial agreement. But it must be proven. Cleanly. Legally." Adrian nodded once. "It will be." That afternoon, he contacted a private investigative firm known for discretion. No digital trail linking back to him. No unnecessary visibility. Within 48 hours, the investigation began. The first findings were subtle. Phone records revealed repeated late-night contact between Vanessa and a private number registered to a holding company tied to Malcolm Rhodes' corporate umbrella. Rideshare receipts. Dinner reservations overlapping suspiciously with Vanessa's girls' nights. Adrian reviewed each document without visible emotion. Then came the surveillance stills. A luxury hotel lobby. Vanessa entering alone in a camel trench coat. Minutes later, Malcolm entering through a separate door. Different entrances. Same elevator. The timestamps aligned. Adrian stared at the black and white image longer than necessary. Twice. No, it hadn't been twice. It had been ongoing. At home, Vanessa behaved normally. Maybe even more affectionate. She touched his arm more often. Sat closer on the couch. Asked about his day with attentive warmth. Guilt sometimes disguises itself as tenderness. One evening, she walked into his study wearing a fitted turquoise dress, leaning against the doorframe. "Are you free next month?" she asked casually. "There's a charity gala Malcolm invited us to." "Malcolm?" Adrian looked up from his laptop slowly. "We'll see," he replied. He watched her leave the room, the soft click of her heels echoing down the hallway. The investigator's final report arrived a week later. Thick. Detailed. Time-stamped hotel entries. Confirmed identities. Financial transactions routed through private channels. Even recovered deleted messages. One message stood out. "Vanessa, he trusts us completely. Malcolm, he always has." Adrian closed the file carefully. There was no eruption of anger. Just confirmation. He moved to the living room and dimmed the lights. On his tablet, he reviewed home security footage from months earlier. There it was. Malcolm entering through the front door during one of Adrian's supposed business trips. Vanessa greeting him. Comfortable. Familiar. In Adrian's house. That was different. That wasn't just betrayal. That was disrespect. Meanwhile, Malcolm Rhodes was preparing for something far bigger. A board appointment that would solidify his public image as a disciplined, visionary executive. Interviews were already circulating. Headlines praised his leadership ethics. Ethics. Adrian almost admired the irony. Timing, he realized, would matter. If exposure came, it would not be emotional. It would be strategic. He coordinated with Daniel Reeves. Divorce documents were drafted quietly. Assets secured legally. Accounts structured properly. The infidelity clause prepared for enforcement. Separately, evidence copies were compiled. Clean, factual, irrefutable. One set for legal proceedings. One set for Malcolm's board. One night at dinner, Vanessa reached across the table and touched Adrian's hand. "You've seemed distant lately," she said softly. "Have I?" he asked. She studied him carefully. "I hope nothing's wrong." He held her gaze. "Everything will be addressed soon," he said calmly. She mistook it for reassurance. It wasn't. Days later, Adrian stood in his high-rise office overlooking the city skyline. The board meeting for Malcolm's appointment was scheduled for 9 a.m. the following week. At 8:59 a.m., 3 separate emails sat queued. One addressed to Malcolm's board members, one to a respected investigative journalist, one to the Corporate Ethics Committee, all attached with documentation. No emotion, only facts. Adrian adjusted the cuff of his navy suit and looked out at the city. He had loved fully. He had trusted completely. Now he would respond intelligently. 9 a.m. The emails sent automatically. Across the city, Malcolm Rhodes was stepping into his boardroom, unaware that the narrative of his career was about to shift. And Adrian Cole stood still, watching the skyline. Not angry, not vengeful, just clear. The investigation was over. The exposure had begun. The morning of Malcolm Rhodes' board appointment arrived under a steel-gray sky. The city looked polished and indifferent, as if nothing significant were about to happen. At exactly 8:30 a.m., a black luxury sedan pulled up in front of Rhodes' global headquarters. The glass skyscraper towered above the street, reflecting the overcast clouds in sleek mirrored panels. Malcolm stepped out of the car with calm authority. Ivory-tailored jacket, deep royal purple dress shirt, black trousers pressed to perfection, gold watch gleaming subtly at his wrist. He looked like a man ascending. Cameras flashed at a distance. Assistants waited near the revolving doors. Today was supposed to be ceremonial, a formal confirmation of his new executive position. Inside, board members gathered around a long mahogany table overlooking the skyline. Malcolm stood at the head of it, confident and composed. "Thank you all for your continued trust," he began smoothly. "This next chapter for Rhodes Global will focus on integrity, stability, and long-term growth." A vibration interrupted him. Subtle. One board member glanced down at a tablet. Then another. Then another. The air shifted. At first, Malcolm continued speaking, until he noticed the silence. One executive leaned back slowly in his chair, eyes narrowing at the screen. Another cleared his throat. "Malcolm," the chairman said carefully, "would you care to explain this?" The tablet was turned toward him. Malcolm stepped closer. Photographs. Time-stamped hotel entries. Security stills. Recovered message logs. A summarized timeline of events, professionally organized. No emotional language. Just facts. At the top of the document, subject, conduct review, immediate attention required. Malcolm's jaw tightened. "This is clearly a coordinated attempt to discredit me," he said evenly. But even as he spoke, more devices lit up around the table. Emails, news alerts, financial blogs beginning to circulate the story. The chairman's voice hardened. "We will need to pause today's vote pending investigation." And just like that, the promotion evaporated. Across town in the Cole mansion, Vanessa stood in her dressing room wearing a sunset orange wrap dress, fastening gold earrings. Her phone began vibrating rapidly on the vanity table. One message, then 10, then 20. Her smile faded. She opened the first news alert. Her breath caught. A corporate headline dominated the screen. Beneath it, an image of Malcolm entering a hotel lobby. The article referenced documented evidence submitted anonymously to the board. Her hands trembled. The article didn't sensationalize. It documented. And then she saw something else. A reference to the spouse of a prominent business executive. Her stomach dropped. She heard the front door open downstairs. Measured footsteps. She walked down the staircase slowly. Adrian stood in the living room. Perfectly dressed in a navy three-piece suit. Matte black tie. Polished shoes. Calm posture. He was holding a cream-colored legal envelope. "Adrian," her voice was barely steady. "What is this?" "It's accountability," he said quietly. Her eyes widened. "You did this?" "I presented facts," Adrian replied. "What others chose to do with them was their decision." "You've ruined him," she whispered. "No," Adrian said evenly. "He made his choices." Her voice shook. "It wasn't serious. It didn't mean anything. That, Adrian replied, is exactly what makes it worse. He extended the envelope toward her. Vanessa stared at it before taking it. Divorce papers. Filed. Citing infidelity. Enforcing the prenuptial clause. Her breath became shallow. 5 years, Adrian. I meant mine, he said. Silence filled the room. She looked at him as if seeing him for the first time. You planned this? Yes. There was no rage in his voice. Only certainty. Back at Rhodes Global, Malcolm was asked to step out of the boardroom. No shouting. No spectacle. Just quiet removal. 2 internal security officers walked behind him down the glass hallway. Employees looked up from desks. Conversations lowered into whispers. His reflection in the glass panels looked slightly distorted now. By noon, the official statement was released. Executive appointment postponed pending internal review. The media picked it up within the hour. Financial analysts debated reputational risk. Investors asked questions. Malcolm's image, built over years, began to fracture. At sunset, movers carried Vanessa's luggage out of the Cole mansion. She wore a soft blue blouse now. Minimal makeup. No statement jewelry. The emerald gown from the anniversary hung untouched in the closet upstairs. She paused beside the SUV, looking back at the house. Adrian stood at the top of the front steps. Hands in pockets. Navy suit still immaculate. No expression of victory. Just closure. Their eyes met briefly. No shouting. No begging. The car door closed. The SUV pulled away. Adrian remained where he was, watching until the vehicle disappeared beyond the gates. The mansion felt larger now. Quieter. He turned and walked back inside. His phone buzzed. A news alert confirming Malcolm Rhodes' suspension pending investigation. Adrian silenced it without reading further. Justice did not feel triumphant. It felt clean. And as the sun sank fully behind the city skyline, Adrian Cole understood something clearly. Exposure doesn't destroy truth. It reveals it. Silence settled into the Cole mansion like a permanent guest. Not the peaceful kind. The hollow kind. The first morning after Vanessa left, Adrian Cole woke instinctively at 6:30 a.m., as he had for years. For a moment, habit overpowered memory. His hand moved across the bed, searching for warmth. There was none. The sheets on her side were perfectly smooth. He lay still, staring at the ceiling as early sunlight filtered through sheer curtains. The house felt larger now. The air heavier. Revenge had not been his goal. Accountability had been. But justice and healing were not the same thing. Across the city, Malcolm Rhodes faced a different kind of silence. The board's internal investigation was swift and clinical. No dramatic press conferences. No public spectacle. Just distance. The board appointment was officially withdrawn. Several major investors requested private meetings. Media outlets revisited past interviews, analyzing his previous speeches about discipline and corporate ethics. Commentary turned sharp. His company released another statement emphasizing its commitment to transparency. Malcolm remained wealthy, influential, but something intangible had shifted. Reputation, once cracked, never fully reseals. Vanessa Cole adjusted to a smaller life. Her new apartment was modern and tasteful, but lacked the sweeping views of the mansion. The skyline visible from her window was partially blocked by neighboring buildings. The ceilings were lower. The silence louder. She stood by the window one evening wearing a soft lavender sweater and dark jeans, holding a ceramic mug between her hands. The world had not collapsed around her, but it had narrowed. Friends who once lingered at her table now replied slowly to messages. Invitations grew fewer. Conversations became polite rather than warm. And Malcolm did not call. When the scandal broke, he had focused on damage control. Lawyers, public relations, corporate positioning. There had been no grand gesture. No promise. No rescue. For the first time, Vanessa realized something painful. She had not been chosen. She had been convenient. Back at the mansion, Adrian began removing photographs from the walls. Wedding portraits. Vacation smiles. Anniversary frames. He did not throw them away. He boxed them. Memory was not erased. It was archived. The living room changed slowly. The wall once lined with gold frames became clean and bare. A deep navy accent replaced soft taupe. Furniture was rearranged. The house felt less like a shared dream and more like a deliberate space. He renovated his home office entirely. Dark wood replaced lighter finishes. Clean lines. Minimal distractions. Control restored through structure. But nights were the hardest. Success continued in his professional life. Colleagues respected how he had handled the situation. Quiet, strategic, unshaken. But admiration does not fill empty rooms. One evening, as the city lights flickered on, Adrian stood on his terrace overlooking the skyline. He thought about love, about trust, about how easily both can be taken for granted. He did not regret exposing the truth. But he understood something deeper now. Betrayal does not only break hearts. It reveals character. Months later, Vanessa requested to meet. Adrian considered declining. Instead, he agreed. They met at a quiet cafe just after sunset. Vanessa looked different. Softer. Less adorned. No emerald gown. No bold lipstick. Just honesty. I didn't understand what I was risking, she said quietly. Adrian studied her expression. It wasn't about Malcolm, she continued. It was about ego. Attention. I didn't think it would cost me everything. Adrian's voice remained calm. It cost us everything. She nodded slowly. I don't expect forgiveness. He considered that. I don't hate you, Vanessa, he said. But trust doesn't rebuild because someone is sorry. There was no anger left in him. Just clarity. They parted respectfully. No dramatic embrace. No lingering touch. Just closure. Malcolm Rhodes remained active in business circles, but differently. More guarded. Less celebrated. His name still carried weight, but no longer admiration without question. He had survived. But survival and respect are not the same. On a quiet morning nearly a year later, Adrian stood once again on his terrace as the sun rose over the city. This time he wore no tie. His navy jacket was open. The wind moved lightly against his shirt collar. He felt lighter, not because the past had disappeared, but because he had accepted it. 5 years of marriage had ended, but his life had not. He had loved fully. He had trusted completely. And when betrayal arrived, he had responded with dignity rather than destruction. The city stretched endlessly before him, bathed in gold morning light. For the first time in a long while, Adrian Cole was not looking backward. He was looking forward. And this time, he would build something stronger. Finally, we have come to the end of the story. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a like and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more intriguing stories.